Welcome to A Book and a Beer, the show that combines reading and drinking. I'm Joe, and today I'm going to be talking about A Darker Shade of Magic by V.E. Schwab. That's right, the last person in all of the internet has finally read A Darker Shade of Magic. This is one of those books that sat on my shelf for a couple of years, even though everyone I knew was telling me, you have to read this book. Well, I finally did, so get off my back. A Darker Shade of Magic follows our hero Kel as he jumps from different versions of London. We're talking alternate universes, parallel universes, however you want to say it. These are little pocket dimensions that only certain people can get to. Kel is part of a special race of magical people called Antari. And as far as we know, as far as this book, there's only two. However, this is the first part of a trilogy. This episode's beer is from the Cowbell Brewing Company in Blythe, Ontario, and it is called KVEIK Pale Ale. I don't know if I'm saying that right. KVEIK. It's either KVEIK or KVEIK. I feel like I should be reviewing the name of the wind. KVEIK. However, this beer is part of their Renegade series. And once you've read A Darker Shade of Magic, you'll realize this book is all about renegades. Cheers. Not a very good pour right off the bat. Oh. Well, it's foamy. So officially, Kel is a courier between the Londons. He's a messenger boy between the royalty of White London, Grey London, and Red London. Unofficially, he's a bit of a smuggler. It's not necessarily a profession. It's something that he does from time to time. Something that, if everybody knew about it, he'd be in a lot of trouble. Our real story kicks off when Kel is somewhat forced into smuggling a magical artifact from the long-lost Black London. Imagine a city so filled with hate and danger and weapons of mass destruction and awful people and monsters. And now imagine just kind of walling up that city and forgetting that it ever existed. That's Black London. All right, we've settled down a bit. Let's try again. Holy. Either I don't know how to pour or something's broken. The most fascinating part of A Darker Shade of Magic is these different Londons. You've got Red London, which is full of magic. You've got White London, where magic exists, but it's very highly coveted and not quite as available. So people are willing to fight and kill for magic. And then you've got Grey London, where magic is just a memory. It doesn't really exist as far as we can tell. And the leaders of each London reflect the characteristics of their cities. You know, in Grey London, their leader is always begging for some token that reminds one of magic, smells of magic, if that's a thing. And then in White London, they're essentially ruled by people who took leadership through force using magic. And then you've got Red London, who is led by the descendants of the previous leaders. Everything is kind of normal because no one's tried to take them down because magic is readily available. So what are the characters like in this book? Obviously there's Kel, and we aren't given a lot of information about anybody when they first step onto the page. But the further you go into the book, the more layers are peeled back, the more you understand, and the more you see the depths of these characters. They're very interesting, and even the bad ones you don't really want to see die or go away because you want to know more about them and you want to see them interacting. There's kind of one main character for each London, except for Black. Red London is Kel. Grey London is a pickpocket, thief, criminal named Delilah Bard. And then from White London, we have the only other Antari in the book who's named Holland. It's not just how interesting these characters are, it's the relationships in them. There's no traditional love story to speak of. Instead, what we have is the story of the love between two brothers, the love between two friends, and even that odd kind of love-hate relationship between two people that are very similar but always seem to be at war with one another. A love between enemies, if that's a thing. Despite what I said earlier about everyone I know telling me to read this book, I do know a few who said they tried to read this book and had to stop. I think I understand that now because the first act of this book has a little bit of wanderlust. You're not really sure what's going on or where it's going. While I never felt like I was going to stop reading, I did at one point think that I was only going to read the first book of the series and not need to continue on. That changed. Even if Act 2 and 3 weren't full of excitement and action and just really entertaining, this book has an ending that makes me need to know what happens in the next book. And of course, I guess we shouldn't expect anything less from V.E. Schwab, or Victoria, as I like to call her, because we kind of have this arrangement where I'm on a first name basis with her and she doesn't know I exist. Well, something is going on here because this beer has been sitting for a while now and still there's foam everywhere. I definitely could have screwed up the pour, but it should be settled down by now. It's a little more bitter than I prefer. I've said before, I'm not into bitter beers. It's not bad. The bitterness isn't lingering. I'm a little concerned about the foam. How could I not be? I mean, it's still sitting on top. So KVEIK Pale Ale is named for the type of yeast that they use, KVEIK yeast. It also mentions the taste of tropical and light fruits, melon, hops, peach, orange, mango, pineapple, and citrus. I don't think I taste any of that. I just went to top it up by maybe that much, and I got this much extra foam. This is a foamy beer. It's also very hazy. I mean, there's hazy and then there's kind of dishwater hazy. Traditionally, a hazy beer is actually indication of it being a poor beer, whether somewhere in its handling, somewhere in its ingredients. Haze is not something that people used to look for. There are some exceptions, and one of them is German yeast beers. This being a yeast beer, I really can't hold that haze against them. It is a little unsettling to look at though, isn't it? I mean, you can't see through that at all. And the foam, yeah, there's no stopping the foam on this one. Let's see if I could drink around it. So what do I rate this book and this beer? Darker Shade of Magic gave me a unique tale with great characters, great development, and great potential for the rest of the trilogy. It is easily a 4-star book, maybe even 4.25. I'm looking for the sequel and the third to maybe even be a little bit higher than that. The beer, on the other hand, is going to get a 3-star from me. As I said earlier, it's a little more bitter than I personally am a fan of. If you are a fan of bitter beers, don't let that put you off. The foam is my main concern. Maybe this beer was brewed with the intent of foam. There are people who enjoy foam in their beer, and this will give you that in spades. So until next time, drop a like, make sure you're subscribed, and tell your friends and family about this. The ones that like to read, the ones that like to drink, the ones that like to read and drink. And hit the comments down below to tell me about the beer and the book that you want to see on this show. Until then, cheers. Hell and Antari. Scrap all that. My amazing beer tasting skills tell me that it is about 20% beer and 80% foam. So, you know. Come on, get it right. Can I say something smart for a second?